Okay. Testing?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Beautiful.
How long were you monologuing?
I was like, okay, hey Dixie, and then Dixie didn't say anything, and then I was like, hey Dylan, and then Dylan didn't say anything. So I was like, okay, just Brit today. Perfect. How's it going, everybody?
And then Britt dropped all the alpha.
I did. I spilled all
Yeah.
the beans. So if you missed that, sorry, but that was a one-time deal. Let's try that again from the top. Hey Dylan, hey Dixie, how are you guys?
Hey, Brett. Glad to be here. How's it going?
Good. Going good. Feels like a busy week, although lots of heads down building, I think, is going to be the trend again. But somehow it also feels like there's a ton of stuff going on. How are things in the data world this week?
Busy. Yeah, basically been flat out all day, every day. Time is melting away, but now I get to put my feet up and relax because I'm off to Istanbul tomorrow. So gonna be swimming at the pool and eating nice meals. No, just kidding. It'll be slogging it at the hackathon. So it'll be a nice change of pace. But I don't think I'll be able to get much kind of data work done in the next few days. But could be good fun. Looking forward to spending some time with Dixie and the team. And yeah, maybe seeing a little bit of Istanbul.
That'll be a lot of fun. Do you have like if you weren't going there for a hackathon, what would you hope to see? Do you have like a wish list for your downtime of things that you'll check out?
Jeez, no. I'll I literally have no clue whatsoever. I've been so busy that I haven't even really planned anything. So I was planning on doing that all on the flight tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah, I like the idea of coming across like a genie in a lantern and buying that at a kind of a little market and then smuggling it back home and maybe some baklava mixed in with that. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
That would be a success in my books.
Yeah, I'm not asking for much.
Yeah. Very cool. So for the hackathon, you will be there to help answer questions for folks, right? Who are like wanting to build on top of Across but aren't really sure how to get started.
Yeah, I'll basically be there to try and fumble my way through some sort of answers, pointing them towards helpful pieces in the docs that the engineers have put together. And then if they're maybe looking for some inspiration or ideas, I can come up with a few of those really quick. It looks like we've also got some really good input from both yourself, Dixie, and Ryan. So we can lean on those as well. But yeah, I'm just there to be of general help, but realistically it's going to be Dixie who's going to be providing the heavy lifting with like how to actually use the feature and what things to call. I can give general guidelines and point to certain areas of useful information, but I'm not a dev, so my usefulness will be somewhat limited.
Your
I'm there
job
to
is
be
to help
Paul's extra pair of hands, basically. The way it's
your
actually
job
going
is
to
to
go.
remind people why they're building on top of Across. You'll be like, yeah,
Yes.
but we've supported 3 point whatever billion of transfers. Or you're just gonna
Exactly.
whip out all the data.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm just going to be the hype man. That's my entire role here.
Yeah. And Dixie, are you looking forward to it as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really fun. So I've been to one, I went to ETH Amsterdam in 2022, I think. Yeah. I actually met some people from the UMA team there. This was kind of before I was on board, but I just remember that it was this really amazing experience that there was so many people who turned up who were just totally focused on building and like went to the hackathon and they were just like spending like all day and all night there. Like the place never sleeps, so it's pretty incredible. So it will be interesting to see it from the other side this time, and really looking forward to kind of seeing what kind of questions we're going to get about Across, what kind of recognition Across will get as well. It would be great to get feedback from users who actually use the bridge, and also to kind of spread some awareness of Across, and really to see what kind of creativity they can bring to this new composable bridging feature that we've developed. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting some developer feedback on that. The timing of launching this could not have been more perfect, right? Like it's a product, or not even a product, it's a feature that is like most beneficial towards developers. And so if we've done our jobs well, then they should have a pretty easy time integrating it into their build. And if not, then we'll get to learn how to do better. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to probably sitting there with Dylan and just like making quick updates and corrections and improvements and adding some extra info and just kind of on the fly responding to some of those requests that we get, because I think that obviously we can always make improvements in different places. Sometimes you don't know where those are going to be in advance. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Very cool. I'm having FOMO that I'm not there, but
Oh,
at the
come
same
on, it's
time,
just a hop, skip, and a jump from Denver, So
yeah, it's very close. So it's really silly for me to not be going. How dare I?
exactly, yeah. Who cares about time differences? You'll be wired awake for 72 hours straight hacking. So who
Yeah,
needs sleep?
yeah, who needs it? Okay, cool. So then let's start today with some housekeeping. So heading into the holiday season, we will have some schedule alterations for our community call. So what we're going to do is an every other week cadence from here on out until the end of the year, and the last 2 weeks of the year will be off. So this week we have a call, next week we'll skip, then we'll have a call, and then we'll skip. And we'll do that until the last 2 weeks of the year, which will be off. And that is just to accommodate for folks who are celebrating holidays, as well as we'll be taking off the week where most of the Risk Labs team will be at an offsite talking about hard problems, mostly intense, I assume. But yeah, so that's a bit of housekeeping from me. As well as I just wanted to let folks know that we do have a wheel spin at the end of this call. Infinity will be doing a wheel spin, and the winner will get 100 ACX. So stay till the end if you'd like to join in on that fun. Let's see. Cool. Well, I guess, yeah, Dylan, I'll bounce the ball back over to you. Do you have any fun stats on the data side to share this week?
I haven't got as much as usual. I've been kind of doing some work on the UMA side for the last couple of days on some like OSNAP metrics and stuff like that. So the stuff that I do have on Across is somewhat limited, but basically what I'm seeing from the data over the last little while, mainly in the last week, there's been a little bit of a pickup in volumes flowing through all the different bridges. That includes canonical bridges. So that's actually quite a good sign. It means that like the pickup in prices that we're seeing is being followed by liquidity entering the system, and there's this flows into funds chart you can actually follow. I think it depends. I get it from like a paid like subscription thingy that I get, but like you'll see it floating around Twitter. It's like coin stats, and it tells you like the flows going in and out of like Bitcoin, Solana, like the majors, like other alts, and like where flows are coming from and to, and you can see like is it net new money entering the system, or is it just money moving from one asset to the other. And what I saw like kind of over the last week was definitely net new money entering the system to the tune of about like $250 million to $500 million. So like when you think about like the reaction function of like crypto prices, they're all really quite illiquid. So even that amount of money coming into the system has like a very definite impact on prices and sentiment, and you can kind of see that really reflected by the fact that crypto Twitter is going pretty much euphoric at the moment. But anyway, what we're seeing is like a little lift up in the volumes going through bridges, and like that's to the tune of about $117 million being transacted a day. So like that's kind of up off the lows of around like 95 to 100 million. But yeah, what we want to kind of see is that slow, steady build in that like volumes flowing through the space continue and not just like fall off a cliff again. Otherwise, what we're seeing right now could be classified as a bear market rally as opposed to something more sustainable. Outside of that, in terms of how like Across is positioned, if we just look at the Across supported tokens, right now Across accounts for approximately 19% of market share. Stargate's coming in at 29%. Orbiter is coming in at Where's Orbiter? 18% and CCTV coming at 13%. CCTV is interesting because it looks like they've started to have some like very big volume days coming in. And like one that we saw recently, and it actually coincided with the huge big run up we saw in AVAX prices over the last little while, was like this like massive amount of volume being bridged between Avalanche and Arbitrum. So what I think people are doing is they're using CCTP in order to move very large amounts of native USDC onto Avalanche and then doing the swapping from there. So that was kind of an interesting observation from a chain that has been like somewhat dead over the last little while, and now it's like suddenly come back to life. So like we are seeing like sparks of life coming back into the ecosystem in various different places where people have been somewhat overly bearish over the last little while. So that's really interesting to see, and the fact that we're seeing it really reflected in the data, in the bridging data in particular, is positive to say the least. Only other thing I would kind of call out over the last little while is that since the start of the quarter, we've managed to convert over 13,000 new users. That's basically brought in an additional 48 million in volume that's been associated with them. And they're about 90% sticky, which is really, really good to see. That means that there's a 90% chance every time they do a bridge transaction that they'll use across. Those are the main sort of takeaways that I got from the last little week. I know I normally go into a little bit more detail, but that's what I got for you this time. Unless you're interested to hear about UMA stuff, but I think that might be for a different call and not this one.
I hit the wrong button. Sorry, I tried to unmute myself and then I left the stage.
No, I realize I've been rambling for a long while. You probably just said, you know what, I'm bored of this.
Like, man,
He's
I'm
just
outta
rambling
here.
at this point. Yeah. Ejected.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Okay, well that's cool. I mean, you kind of danced around my next question, which was just going to be, is this a rally or signal? Are we finally exiting the bear? Your opinion on this changes weekly, so I'm interested to hear how you're feeling this week.
No, my opinion has been firm that the market will cause max pain in whichever direction that is. That's probably up short term, then smash down to get all the people rinsed, and then it'll probably start a slow climb up. So I think we're in that short upturn bit. Who knows if it's got legs or not? Yeah, do whatever you want. Not financial advice.
I know.
I did take a rather large chunk off the table over the last few days. Whether that's going to be a silly decision or not remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful for you. I almost did the same and then I didn't. So one of the two of us will be happy about our decision. Or maybe it's something to cause each of us pain.
Exactly.
I think, Dylan, when you say that, I'm just wondering, like, what have you really got planned in Turkey?
God.
Too good. Too good. I had a question for you, Dylan, about the flows to Arbitrum, because their short-term grant initiative should be distributed by now. And so I think that there are probably some like Arbitrum giveaways, or not giveaways, but like Arbitrum rewards on a few projects in Arbitrum right now. So I was wondering if there was any kind of like uptick in general on bridging to Arbitrum.
Funny you should say that, because like I actually didn't mention this because it's not necessarily a great thing, but I actually saw a very large downtick in the aggregator market penetration ratio, which is basically like the amount of volume aggregators managed to capture of like the total flows that are going through the space in the last week. And like that was primarily from Socket. So like you would think with their like ARB token rebates that they're going to be basically juicing volume that's kind of going through that like you see an uptick. But I actually saw the opposite of that. We saw people actually going to Arbitrum via the canonical bridge. So maybe that was just like one or two big whales. And like that's why the ratio dropped over the last little while. But the fact that we saw it consistently drop over a few days is probably like it's an interesting insight. Like it dropped down from about a high of 27 or 28% down to 23-ish%. So like I know that's a small enough drop, but we basically want to see that continue go up and up and up. Maybe it's just a short-term sort of correction, but like basically that did coincide with a bit of downtime on socket as well. So it just might have been a few different factors all coming together at once. So that was a very long-winded way of saying no. I haven't seen any kind of like major step changes in flows to or from Arbitrum. Like the normal route that we kind of see is people like farming new coins on the likes of ZK Sync and then like going back to Arbitrum because it's like quicker, so they can basically use us to go from ZK Sync to Arbitrum and then bridge to ZK Sync using the canonical bridge again. So no, I haven't seen any major shift change in flows there, but I would have thought I would have continued to see more going through aggregators, especially Socket, with their ARB rebates now kind of switched on, but I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, well, it's still early. I think they have until the end of January to distribute all of their incentives. So we'll keep an eye on it, but I guess off to a slow start. So
Yep.
Okay, well, cool. Dixie, how about the engineering realm? How has our engineering team been holding up this week?
Pretty well, I think. There's a lot of kind of concurrent tracks going. So my focus has mostly been on preparation for this hackathon, making sure testnet's working. We also have some kind of partners who are low key integrating or building on composable bridging, just testing out some interesting things. There's been a bit of support for that. And otherwise there's I don't know how much we can talk about some of the other work that's going on, but there's kind of a general protocol update that's starting to take shape. So I think stay tuned for that, because we'll have some interesting information in the future about that too.
Dylan says spill the beans. We can actually talk a bit about it. I think it's a narrative that we want to definitely lean into. So I think we shouldn't be too afraid to talk about it. And I'm happy to take the bullet on spilling the beans as Melissa is sitting in the audience watching us. Hey Mel. But yeah, so Across has always been an intents-based architecture, but for our next big update, we're just really leading into that. And so yeah, maybe you can just talk a bit about how that's going. I think we're still in the stages of like speccing that out, correct?
Yeah, correct. It's like relatively early stages of implementation. I would say there's been kind of an ongoing design process that's been running internally for the past kind of few weeks. But basically, yeah, there's like core changes being made to Across to give a bit more flexibility, I think, and also to like what we found is that Across is like really useful for settlement for bridging via Across, right? But it's actually got probably some broader applicability. So like maybe there's some other protocols that can also get the benefit of what Across can offer. I don't know how much more I can say about that, but I do think it's exciting times. And there's I'm also excited from kind of a protocol perspective. I'm really excited about some of the changes that are going to be made, because they will remove some constraints. Like I think the lives of users will get a bit better from this, and I think Across will probably be able to attract a lot more, like even more activity than it does now, because it's really going to enable Across to be used to do a lot more. And I guess I'll pause there.
I do have a question, and maybe I don't know if you can't answer, that's okay. But what have been some of the challenges of trying to do this redesign of Across?
Oh, I think one of the major challenges is Across is like it's pretty heavy. It's obviously heavily used. Like Dylan turns up every week and with Chase, and they kind of explain like how popular it is and all the different volumes. Like Across is doing over 10 million USD in volume a day. We have partnered a lot with aggregators and integrators, and they're all funneling a lot of traffic via Across. And so this is a bit like you've built this thing that people are starting to really depend on. And one of the interesting things is then you're saying, well, hang on, we want to make some adjustments. We want to make some updates, but maybe that actually, requires all these people who have built on top of Across to also make some changes. And obviously, that's something that you really want to minimize the kind of the work that others have to do in order to support this. So I think it's like one of the really kind of focal points for this has been like, how do we introduce these changes in a way that give us the benefits that we really need, and that will enable us to do a lot more in future, whilst not, like kind of metaphorically speaking, rugging the integrators who have like built on top of us and who actually kind of are happy with what they've got at the moment. So that kind of thing is a real challenge to say, like, how does the one protocol, like, how do we kind of ease the transition for these external parties, make it simple, make it easy, and make it so that we don't have like downtime in any places. This is something that there's a lot of effort that has gone into discussing like different scenarios and what kind of strategies we can apply in order to kind of ease that process.
Yeah, having backwards compatibility basically is just really tough. And
Yeah.
while also like building something that will allow it to be backwards compatible in the future.
Yeah, correct. And I mean, it is like, you can look at other protocols. Like, other protocols obviously have, this is not an issue that's unique to Across, but you can kind of look at some kind of other transition that's happening ecosystem wide with with Circle and USDC, USDCE, native and bridged USDC. Like, it is hard. Like, I have to admit that. And the thing is that if you do something that your users don't like, it actually really affects your traction. So it's something that we're kind of taking very seriously, and just making sure that we've really explored all the options to minimize any disruption that might occur.
I think our last challenge of this nature was when we upgraded the spoke pools last, and folks had to sort of like transition over to a new spoke pool, but the part of that upgrade was making it upgradable again so that we don't have to go through all that again.
Yeah, correct. So I mean, there were like lessons learned. We got some good feedback from different providers about that, or different integrators. We also got some, had some internal observations that there were some things that probably could have gone a little bit more smoothly. We obviously had from some of the aggregators, we were not listed by them for a little bit of period after that upgrade happened. So there was definitely like that. We're kind of building on top of that experience and just taking the lessons that we've learned from that. And obviously this time we have spoke pool contracts on each chain which are upgradable. So we have flexibility to once the code changes go through audit, we have flexibility to make those updates. But it's still like, when we're talking about changing interfaces and updating some of the way, like for instance, the way that you might make a deposit, there is like inevitably some kind of disruption. So the question is like, how can you establish like a migration path that allows people to opt into the new system without forcing it on them until some later point in time? Anyone who's probably done any kind of like upgrade in place or any kind of service upgrades for a service is probably familiar with some of the challenges that you have here. And the thing with blockchains is that they don't sleep. So wherever you are, it's a massive advantage that you can be like the middle of the night somewhere and you can just do whatever you want. But this also just imposes this kind of extra burden on the team, just to make sure that we're not inconveniencing people or disrupting any kind of established services.
Yeah.
One thing I would kind of call out is that like last time when we did the upgrades, like Across was like just so much smaller and like less, honestly, like less relevant. Like we weren't the majority, like we weren't the majority volume capture, bridge, and any of the aggregators, and then like they could actually afford to be slower with actually getting us back online. Whereas like now, the fact that like we account for like 70-80% of the volume flows there, like I think people would actually notice that like if we were to do an upgrade and aggregators were like slow to actually add us back in, like I think they would experience a meaningful decrease in the amount of volume that's going through those aggregators, and people might actually just like look and go directly to Across. So I think now we've kind of gotten to a size and relevance that like we can actually coordinate more like speedy upgrades and rollouts of like actual integrators who are already there. And like it's a nicer position to be in, considering that like we've managed to gain a little bit of clout, and like I suppose is kind of like respect, considering the amount of volumes that we are doing and like the user experience that we actually are managing to provide. Thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's kind of what happens, when you're smaller and you have like less relevance in the space, then the kind of the requirements expected, of you are a bit lower. We are kind of, as we see, we're picking up traction and developing a brand, and users are kind of coming to Across to, it's like their destination bridge, right? Like this is just like the go-to bridge for them. We get that feedback from different users, and that's really amazing. So it kind of is incumbent on us to make sure that we kind of live up to those expectations as well. And like obviously as your product becomes more mature and becomes much more of an integral part, like a kind of you're kind of integrating lower and lower into the stack of what Ethereum is, and this kind of cross-chain layer 2 ecosystems. It just becomes more and more important that you really plan the upgrades and make sure that you haven't really left any stone unturned in terms of maintaining your service. So yeah, we do our best for sure to live up to that, and I think generally we actually give a pretty good service. And we just need to kind of lift our game again when we go through a major protocol upgrade.
100%. Coordinating humans is tricky. It's like herding cats.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions about this, if you're happy to entertain. One of which is so with the launch of composable bridging right now, how do you think that like leaning into the intents-based architecture more will affect that, if at all, or is it just entirely complementary?
I think it's an enabler. So like if you don't have this composable bridging feature where you can include some messaging payload or messaging data with your tokens, then it's kind of hard to be expressive in what your intents actually are. Like if you don't support that, then it's basically just like, hey, I want to send value from here to here. But I actually had a really kind of good chat with Ryan the other day, and he kind of gave me his perspective on how this composable bridging thing can be perceived, because I think that in engineering I'm kind of a bit prone to like looking at it as in one particular way, but Ryan just really expressed to me that like if you're like a protocol that's on a particular chain, say you're a protocol on Arbitrum, and it's like you want to make it as easy as possible for people to kind of make deposits into your protocol, then you go to composable bridging, and you say you build this feature on top of composable bridging. You say like I will facilitate, I will automate all of the things that need to happen on the destination chain, so that all the user needs to know is that they've sent their funds and they arrived. The user doesn't have to like wait for them to arrive on the other end and then like do some token approvals and then make the deposit, wait for the confirmation, get the gas. Like if you think about that user experience, it's actually like having to do all those steps manually is, we just kind of accept it because it's what we're used to. But it's actually not a very good user experience if you were to tell the average person that they need to do like 5 things to move their funds from one chain to another and then to deposit them into some protocol. So I think that like composable bridging is a major enabler of this, and we're really interested to see who will kind of start to integrate that and just make it so that you can do something on a remote chain without having to touch it, without having to think about it. But I think that's something that we can actually support now, which is really cool. I think that the pending protocol updates for I think is what is called version 3. They will just broaden the appeal of it. They will allow it to be used in more ways. So that will be exciting to see as well.
Yeah, so the way that my brain tries to think about this is such that composable bridging is useful for managing your position within a single protocol, whereas when you think about intents more broadly, it's useful for maybe like interacting across protocols or something like that.
Yeah, I think the way that I think of intents is, and like the interrelationship between composable bridging and intents is that like Across itself doesn't have the expressivity to allow a user to say, I want to go to this other chain and I want to do this thing and then I want to do this other thing. So we don't have the way of expressing that or allowing a user to say like, hey, I want to do that. But what we do have is we have like the raw canvas that someone else can come and can build that on top of. And so like composable bridging is just a foundation or a scaffolding basically that allows somebody else to to abstract away the kind of the chain differences, but to still allow user preferences to be expressed in the form of a message that can arrive at the destination chain along with some tokens, and then do something meaningful to that user. So that's at least my view on it.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a different way of thinking about it, but I like it. Okay, last question from Britt on the intense stuff is obviously intense as a concept is pretty heavily reliant on a healthy relay ecosystem to do all these things. How do you imagine this update impacting our relayer network? Do you think that this is good for them? Does it make them happy, or does this come with like its own unique set of challenges? Yeah, just generally curious.
I think it will be overwhelmingly positive for relayers, which I'm happy about because I spend a lot of time with the relayer community and I hear their feedback about the kind of the speed competition and the effects that has on the management of their relayers. So basically what we have seen in what we've kind of anticipated internally for quite a while is that there would be a migration to some kind of auctioning model so that you can get a feedback loop on the fees. So that basically when somebody says like, hey, I want to bridge from one chain to another, and here is the details and attributes of my transfer, like relayers actually get to look at that and say like, well, I will do that for this price, and another relayer says, well, I will do it for this other price, and then you can kind of pick the one that supplies the lowest price. So I think that there's kind of a general acceptance that this will be the future. And we actually had an internal hackathon project that did something along those lines to basically replace the existing gas auction system that relayers have to operate under, and swap in a kind of a pseudo auction, which actually just selected relayers by random. But yeah, I think that this thing will eliminate a kind of key pain point for relayers, which is that at the moment it's purely about speed, and to a second degree it's about like the gas price that you're prepared to pay in order to win a fill. So what happens is that it kind of pushes the relayers towards being more and more sophisticated. Like it becomes a more and more specialized activity. Whereas in the future, what we'll be able to see is that relayers will be able to kind of compete pretty much on price, and that's much more of like it removes the speed and the technological advancement kind of it kind of levels the playing field a bit there, and basically if someone's willing to do something for a lower price, then they should be able to get it. So I think that will be net positive for relayers. Obviously the fees will go down, but that's also probably going to attract higher volumes. And then, I think it's also really good for users. Like competition is ultimately good for users of the bridge. It makes transfers faster and it makes them cheaper. So we will also hope that what is good for the relayers is also good for the users in this case.
I said that was my last question, but I have one more. If we're talking about sort of an auctioning system, how do you think that impacts the time transfers take?
Well, I think you can do auctions actually very quickly. There's actually a lot of different complexities, or like there's different design trade-offs basically that can be made about like how extensively, like what kind of parameters do you bring to your auction? Do you kind of just do it as like a first come first serve? Do you do it as like a first price auction? Do you do it as like, you have like this kind of tender period where, relayers can update their bids or something like that? Like there's different ways to tune that. And one of the cool things is also that I think you can actually run different types of auctions depending on like what is the token being bridged, what is the volume being bridged, what are the chains involved. Like you can actually parameterize all of these things, and you can customize the auction strategy. So for instance, if you're bridging like $10, like maybe you just kind of, in that case, you might want to optimize for price. Like maybe you're bridging somewhere involving, or bridging from Ethereum or something like that, and you actually want to optimize for low fees. In that case, you might say like, hey, I care about absolutely minimizing costs, and I will trade off by increasing my delivery time. Maybe you're doing some kind of cross-chain game application or something like that, where you actually just really care about speed, and in that case you'll say like, I don't care about the fee, I just want the fastest delivery possible. And then I guess it's also a different scenario if you're bridging like massive volume, which we have previously seen with like a Bitcoin whale bridging 4 million in a series of transfers. Like in that case, the user was like not speed sensitive at all, but they actually wanted lowest price basically, because they're paying a percentage of the amount that's being transferred. So I think that auction mechanisms give you a lot of flexibility, and you don't have to pick like a one size fits all. You can actually tune it, and it's something that can be kind of updated over time as well. So that's something which I think is exciting.
That's very cool. So do we have ambitions of having some kind of like fine-tunable or like customizable auction mechanism?
I think internally for Across, probably like the emphasis would be on like finding something that just like works broadly. But I do think the future of Across is kind of being like, we talk about composable bridging, but like maybe Across itself, has some future where others are increasingly building new features on top, and maybe there's like an alternate reality in the future where like people run their own relay networks and offer their own auctions. Like that's a technical possibility for Across. It doesn't have to be like there's one relay network that's all run by Across itself. Like I think that there's technical possibility for decentralization of the actual bidding process as well, and who's hosting the auction. So yeah, I think that it's a pretty open design space, and like obviously there's a little way to go before we can support features like this, but there's a bit of thinking going on in the back of the head in the lead up to that as well, about like what might be cool to do. And I think also like individual devs and maybe Dylan and other people on the team all have different ambitions for this as well, and so I guess we'll just have to see what ends up being implemented.
Yeah, totally. It's fun to think about. We're building cool shit, guys. I'm excited. Yeah, relayer extractable value. That's going to be our next Risk Labs build, maybe. Now, let me scroll back up. EA Sports asked a question that I want to give space for. Let's see. He says, love the concept of composable bridging / intents and agree on user experience and opportunities, but feel like bridge infra is the first step, and it could be a while before we see more adoption based on other protocols or use cases being developed or put together for average users. I think we'll either see scammers or smart people looking at ARB opportunities until we see some large projects like DEXs or yield aggregators put together the puzzles for the masses. Curious on your thoughts on the time horizon and maturity of those use cases for broader adoption.
Interesting question. I mean, I think like I can give some examples. Like we have had some discussions with like a cross-chain yield aggregator who is predominantly bridging value via Across, but will also kind of end up looking at messaging as well. Like cross-chain yield aggregation is an interesting case where composable bridging kind of probably is quite a good natural fit. We've also seen like cross-chain auctions, and they're kind of coming from surprising places as well. So I think that like there are smart people out there who are like brainstorming these use cases and are kind of probably building them quietly. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see, what the next cycle brings, because that's probably when some of these things will get, some of these use cases will really explode and come to the fore. So yeah, but I'll say so far I've been kind of pleasantly surprised by some of the use cases that people have come up with, and also for the hackathon, which starts on Friday, I'm pretty excited to see like what kind of ideas people can throw up there as well.
Amen to that. Cool. Well, thank you for thanks for obliging all the questions on the intent-based stuff. Super cool to daydream about how that is going to unfold. I do want to leave a call for questions in the stage chat in case anybody would like to ask a question about that before we wrap it up on that conversation. And in the meantime, I want to remind folks that if you want to participate in the spin the wheel that Infinity is doing at the end of this call, make sure to go to the stage chat and scroll back up to his message. It says react to this if you want to win 100 OP ACX. So all you have to do is emoji react, and then he'll spin a wheel at the end of the call. So yeah, just a reminder for folks on that. And then I'll interject real quick with some community/governance stuff. So we do have a live proposal right now, and I think it closes in like 2 hours. Not much longer. Yeah, 2 hours. It was a proposal put up by Kevin to reduce the ACX emissions for the Across bridge pool of ACX. Interesting read with lots of thoughts on why we might do that, and I would just encourage everybody to go vote if you have not already. We are 90. Oh, that's not true. We did hit quorum. So just if you've already voted and you're worried, don't worry. We just barely hit quorum, but we're good. If you haven't voted, then go make sure you vote. Yeah. Okay. Let me check back in our stage chat and see. GR wants to know if any aggregator has launched composable bridging feature yet. I think the answer is no, but they are aware of it at least. Is that right, Dixie?
Yeah, so definitely there's discussions with them. I don't think there's any kind of production services that have been launched. One of the interesting ones that we did hear about was that some of the aggregators are actually looking to do aggregation of the the messaging function. So they would kind of try and abstract away like one bridge versus another and say that okay, they would simultaneously send a transfer via multiple or something, or they would prefer one, and if it doesn't live up to some kind of constraint, then they would rotate to the next one. So they're kind of more angling towards like guaranteeing service and giving assurances about like if you use their service, then they will guarantee it gets filled on the other end, and they can kind of add some value around that. So that was some interesting kind of idea that we'd heard, but I don't think it's launched yet. But it could be that Across ends up being one of those transports.
Another like easy plugin for aggregators would be the refuel function, right? Like some other, I don't know if Socket does as well, but I think Li-Fi at least offers a refuel, and now you could do that using Across. I think that was an area where we were potentially excluded prior to now.
Yeah, definitely. And we have actually, like, I should give a shout out to GR in the community who's actually listening. So there's like a community project as well, which is going to be using Across, composable bridging, and can support cool things like token swaps and gas refuel on the destination chain and all kinds of interesting things. So I won't spoil that too much, but like there has been like a really, really cool community effort to kind of explore this feature as well, and gas refuel really stands out as one of the kind of the obvious ones to do.
Absolutely. Dylan, it's funny that you're participating in the stage chat when you're on stage. You're welcome to interrupt.
I don't want to interrupt you guys. You've got a nice kind of flow going, and I only ask stupid sort of questions, so I'll keep my asinine questions to the chat where people can react with emojis and poo icons and whatnot, and That's how I'll get the majority of my answers back.
No, I mean, in case you missed it, EA Sports said that he sold his entire portfolio based on your financial advice last week, and so he's
Yes,
really
yes.
depending on you.
I've been trying to keep low after that comment as well, because I realize now I've opened myself up to some serious litigation opportunities.
Yeah.
Lucky enough, I don't live in the States and I can't be sued left, right, and center as far as I'm aware. But anyway, EA might prove me wrong on that.
It would take a lot to swindle EA out of his bags. He's a savvy guy. Okay, cool. So let's wrap this up with one more exciting thing, which is that the Across token, the ACX token, has a birthday coming up. It is November 28th. And our community event masters and our committee, our essentials committee, are doing some cool events to celebrate that. So if folks are interested in learning more or participating in that kind of stuff, you should head over to the events channel. It's an announcement channel, and that is where they will share, how to get involved in party or challenges or any games or anything like that. So we just had a happy birthday to Across last week, and then next week or next week, is it next week? I don't know. Soon we're having a happy birthday to Across token. So lots of ACX that we'll be giving away. And with that, Infinity, why don't you queue up our wheel real quick? Hopefully you're heard.
Guys, I'm going to drop. Britt, thanks very much for having us, and talk to you guys next week, I think. Yeah. Adios. See you guys. Bye.
Adios. Cheers, Dylan. Dixie, do you have a dad joke to tell while Infinity spins the wheel?
Not really. I did hear a really bad bridge joke, but it didn't really apply to Across, so that's not a good one to share here. But no dad jokes. I'll have to get some practice.
Yeah, that's okay. I did put you on the spot, so that's all good. Okay, let's check in and see if our wheel has spun. It has, and that crypto gal, you have won 100 ACX that is on OP now. Our tip bot now supports Optimism tipping, so that if anybody wants to withdraw their ACX, it is much cheaper to do so. So, congrats on being the first winner of our Optimism ACX. I assume that Infinity will tip you out, but Infinity, if you need more funds, let me know. And with that, let's go ahead and call it a wrap. Thanks all for joining us today. Thanks, Dixie, for the fun conversation on intense-based stuff. Wishing you and Dylan the best of luck in Istanbul. Hopefully we get some good hacks that are built on top of us. And a reminder to everybody that we will be taking a break from the community call next week for some holidays. Cheers, everyone.